Hey, Stephen, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. First of all, appreciate you being on our pretty young Leaders Who Care video series, and we're actually kind of amazed, already getting tons of good impact and feedback and stuff like that. I think in a good way, people are realizing it's time for everybody to care a little bit more.
Good. Glad to be a part of this.
Yeah, so we great way to start, obviously, is if you can just introduce yourself and share a little bit about who you are, that'd be terrific.
Sure. My name is Stephen Cheung. I'm the president of the World Trade Center Los Angeles, which is a nonprofit in Los Angeles focusing on foreign direct investment attraction. At the same time, I'm also the executive vice president of the LA County Economic Development Corporation, another nonprofit organization, the parent company of World Trade Center Los Angeles, with a focus on creating economic prosperity for all the residents of Los Angeles and beyond.
And just so everybody knows, he's had that memorized for like a long time now. Yeah. So I'm surprised you don't say it in your sleep.
Sometimes I do.
No, I definitely wanted to have you on this because you're so involved globally and locally and tying it all together. But the first thing I want to know is, everybody always talks about their why, and I had someone the other day saying, no, I do my what first, then I do my why. But my main question is, why do you do what you do?
Well, there are many layers to that question. I'll try to give you the shorter version. As an immigrant, I moved from Hong Kong to LA when I was about 8, 9. Growing up here as an Asian American, you would think that in a diverse location, Los Angeles, it will be easy. But there are challenges when it comes to racism, when it comes to discrimination. But on top of it, we didn't grow up with wealth. So we struggled a little bit, and we saw the underbelly of society in many ways when you're working in a low income, from a low income background. So I think growing up, I saw the injustice that can happen without support, and there are many folks that might not have the access or the voice. So that drives my work. It became my career path. Worked in government, worked in public service, and now in this role, working in economic development in the nonprofit sector, is really about creating jobs and opportunities for those who might not have the same access. And I do think that if you're provided with the right opportunity, a lot of folks will have the chance to flourish and grow. But unfortunately, our society doesn't always provide these opportunities to everybody. So whatever I can do to contribute, I would like to do so, and that's been my drive and the reason why I'm in this field.
Yeah, and I'm biased, but you do a great job in representing LA and everything, and so I'm proud to be your friend and colleague, and it's to say the least, it's hit a tipping point with everything going on right now. We thought we were busy with a pandemic, and then we got so many more, and then we got a little earthquake to boot the other day in LA, just so Mother Nature can remind us I'm still here.
Yeah.
So there's a reason we're doing Leaders Who Care now. Finally, leaders are seeing, and more now, like this moment than ever, that aligning with social impact, caring about what's going on in the community is good for business, but it's also good for attracting talent, and it's also good for getting diversity in their talent. You've been involved local to global, as I've said, building relationships all over the place for economic and social benefits. So the first question I'm going to ask related to that is about you, and it's kind of like a push question.
Okay.
What differentiates you as a leader who cares from your experiences, and what's going to happen in the future?
I think it's hard to say that it's a differentiating factor, but I do think that from my personal background, growing up as a minority of a minority, not having that voice and always having to watch out for those opportunities that are there, I become hyper vigilant and very sensitive to things that are around that a lot of people might not be paying attention to. And whenever I go anywhere and meet with whether business leaders or governmental leaders, I actually not only look at what they do and what they say, but I look at how they interact with waiters, with staffs, with staff, with secretaries, with assistants. Because I think that's a very telltale sign of what the personality is as well. So with that, I think what I contribute to part of the conversation is that I'm able to be more empathetic based on my personal experience, to be able to see that the larger picture, setting policies, setting goals, it doesn't matter if you're not going to be able to affect the people on the ground, the frontline folks, the waiters, the staff, the member, because ultimately, and you alluded to this a little bit, as a society grows, if we leave a portion of our society behind, we can't really collectively grow together, because at a certain point, it's going to catch up to us. And this is actually the moment where we've seen that COVID-19 is not creating anything. It's just exposing and revealing the deficiencies in our structure. And so now we're faced with a task in terms of determining what to do. So I think that's where I come in, and hopefully I can contribute to that conversation and be able to add that element of empathy, of understanding on the various levels to have a more diverse conversation, not only when it comes to race, not socioeconomic background, but a number of different factors as well.
Yeah, it's a great point. My family's immigrant too. You got Russia, Poland, and whatnot. And my grandparents always used to say with a Kiev little accent thrown in there, as long as you have your health, that's the most important thing. And then they say, and then education. But they worked their butts off so we'd have access to it. And health and well-being really are the whole ball game. If you think about your well-being depends on access to technology, depends on access to just the dignity of a good job and people respecting you. And as I said, with COVID and everything going on with injustice now, it's kind of hit the tipping point. But I think people have had the time now to think a little bit, with respect to that. How do you view then, I love the part you say about, that's why I bring up the dignity of respecting people in who they are, whether it's a waiter or a doctor or whatever. How do you view the future of community then being with respect to when you're at work, when you're at home, when you're in the community, interacting with each other and impacting us?
Well, I think, again, with what we're going through over the last 6 months, the world has changed very quickly. And I think particularly America has changed significantly over just the last 2 weeks, witnessing the horrific murder of George Floyd in front of the entire nation. And again, it's not creating anything new, but it's exposed and reveals something that we've known for a long, long time. So I think it created an opportunity for us to hold a mirror to ourselves in terms of what have we done, what we haven't done. And it really pushes us to move forward in the future to see that not only for the Black community, but for every community that's been underserved, what have we done to make this world a better place? And so I think moving forward, you're going to see a lot more attention being paid in a way that they haven't done before. And I think a lot of folks are very active when these incidents happen. And I think we all lament the fact that sometimes the moment passes and still you haven't seen any change. And I think you've been seeing a lot across media, social media, in terms of the historic context. This is nothing new. This has been the civil rights movement back in the 1960s. And yet at the same time, 50 years later, we're still not that far ahead. Yes, have we made progress in certain area? Have we had the first, the African-American presidents in the United States history? That's a huge accomplishment. But as a whole, from a community standpoint, there's still a lot of deficiencies that are there. So I think moving forward, we can no longer turn a blind eye and basically be okay with what's happening. We're all going to be pushing ourselves a bit further in terms of, if you're not part of the solution, what are you part of? Are you doing more to basically make sure that these social inequalities and income divide, that eventually, again, I was mentioning before, that maybe certain parts of the population are not seeing it, but what we're seeing is, as a whole, as a society, eventually we're going to have to pay somehow. And this disruption, obviously COVID is one thing, but that's another indication of how globally we're tied in with each other and how interdependent we are. And so with that, there's also a cost in that way. When there's a pandemic, it's easily spread throughout. So all these connectivity are becoming a lot more apparent to us. And so we can't turn away from that. So I think moving forward, we're going to have to look at ourselves in terms of our action, and we're going to have to hold ourselves accountable a lot more than we've ever done before.
Yeah, I agree. And I think one of the positive things I see, I mean, every generation has younger people wanting to make a difference and things going on. In fact, it's funny you mentioned the 60s. We had the launch to the moon, and NASA was going crazy in the 60s with all sorts of unrest. And here we are, Musk has his SpaceX going up and all sorts of unrest. It's kind of weird in a way. But there seems to be, I agree, a chance for dramatic change. And one thing I did notice, and you did too, I'm sure, is there was such a diversity within the protesters, like never ever seen before, right?
Well, you're mentioning earlier that you see a lot of young people being very active. I actually see everybody being active. I think you have people across the age range, across ethnic groups, across different socioeconomic background, gender. It doesn't matter. I think at this point it's a human issue. I think with COVID, the social isolation has brought our connectivity in a different way, because we haven't been able to be physically socially engaged in that sense. But it's created these opportunities for Zoom calls and other things to be connected that way. But we're also able to connect with people another way, and that's why I think right now you're seeing with the protests, a lot of folks are going out on the streets. Right, they're wearing the mask. But the thing at the same time, there's a risk factor there, and people are willing to do that because this cause. There a lot of people are saying that racism is a virus as well, and you have to basically take action against it. So I think it's spreading across the spectrum, and this momentum, I'm hoping that it won't be forgotten, because we've seen too many other cases, whether it's Trayvon Martin, whether it's Sandra Blank, all these other really horrific incidents that had a really moment in time for us to take action. And as a collective, and this is the part where it's not so much a criticism, but we just have to recognize the fact that sometimes, the momentum is there, but we don't carry through. And I think this very moment is very different. I'm hoping we're able to basically actually, as a nation, collectively, really start moving forward and be able to take action.
See, that's what we're finding. The difference is, it used to be when I first started using the word care, I may have shared with this with you at one time, in corporate venues, people would say, well, that's fluffy, that's ridiculous, that's not what, you don't need to care, you just whatever. And I would joke around saying, oh, you're going to be really crazy when I start using the word love. I don't know what you're going to do then. But I actually do see a difference, like you, that people actually are realizing that they do care, and they don't want to just let the moment go by. Because if this moment goes by, you don't want more moments. But this is a different moment. It seems like a different moment. And I'd love to ask. You work with a lot of corporate leaders, some from other countries, that you're hoping will invest here, and other corporate leaders that are trying to grow their businesses. And what you've seen out there, in the sense of them realizing that to be successful, they actually, for their brand and for everything, they do have to care. But they have to care not just about the financial well-being, if you will, of their talent, but the physical well-being, the mental well-being. It's good for business. It's good for community, and it's all one circle. It's not just we make money and then we'll give a donation type of thing on the side. What are you seeing with corporate leaders in that respect about caring?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think the consumer base and the public is demanding that when it comes to a bottom line, it's no longer just about profit. A lot of people have been talking about the triple bottom line. It's about equity, it's about environmentals, and it's also about profit and growth as well. But the thing is, it shouldn't be just one, because again, if you just have one side growing, eventually it's coming at a cost to other things, and eventually that's going to catch up. And I think if you want to look at the longevity, you want to look at the sustainability of a company, of a project, you really have to look at it holistically, comprehensively. And that means taking care of not only your bottom line when it comes to profit, but the bottom line when it comes to happiness, when it comes to mental well-being. And that's why you're seeing transformation in office space. You've seen a lot of companies start investing into exercise rooms and kind of open space where people can interact a lot more, and a lot more maybe moving away from the traditional cubicles and the corner office kind of idea that if you move into a corner office then you've made it. It's more about you made it when you're able to engage with your workers and employees, that they're happy and they're contributing more to not only the productivity of the company, but also contributing to society. This is something that LAEDC currently we are dealing with and we're struggling with as well. And I use the word struggle because there's a lot of different ideas and different thoughts in terms of how do we basically make a better organization. We're currently going through a 3-year strategic planning process, and we're talking about the future of the organization. And a lot of our younger staff member are also very adamant about making sure that when we are planning for the work of our organization, it's not just about the work internally, about volunteering opportunities and how do we engage with the public and the community, how do we give back. As a nonprofit organization, I think many of us feel that we already, by the nature of our work, we're giving back. But the best thing about it is it's not enough. And if we're not able to take care of that need for our workers and our employees and our partners to really be part of the community, they don't want to be part of this group. So I think more and more companies, whether it's international or domestic, are seeing this as an opportunity to really grow the talent pool, help them become better engaged partners to their community. The happier they are, the more they're able to contribute to the organization, and eventually that actually brings to the other bottom line, which is a profit side as well. Because from a longevity standpoint, from a happiness standpoint, you can see that productivity is going to increase when they're able to contribute more to the company.
Yeah, I've told you this before. I was impressed when I was invited. I'm happy to be invited when the Japanese delegation came, and they were all wearing their SDG pins, and and all totally committed to community as a way to go, and it's good for business. So, we all take care of our communities, but it's great to see when we're all recognizing we're part of one global community, and it really does make a difference. And that's why I love what you do, and dealing with international, especially in a city like LA, where it's so tied in, our success and our way of being is so tied into international people, right?
Yes. Well, I think the world is looking towards us. I think a lot of folks are really eager for leadership, and leadership in various fronts. I think sometimes when we talk about leadership, we only think of either corporate leaders or when we're thinking about political leaders. But I think right now, as you're looking at the protests that's happening around not only the United States, right, with the Black Lives Matter, there's a diffused leadership kind of concept. Same thing with protests that are happening around the world as well. Using technology, whether it's Twitter, whether it's other things, it's allowing folks to communicate in a different way and mobilize in a different way. So I think combined together, you're seeing internationally and domestically speaking, people are looking for role models. And I think LA definitely has shown the light in terms of the positive and the negative, because let's be honest, this is a part where I was mentioning earlier, we have to hold the mirror up right now to look at ourselves. The racial tension in Los Angeles, again, this is not anything new. During the 92 riots because of the Rodney King incidents, and before that in the 1960s, it's been happening over and over and over again. If we don't look at ourselves and basically understand that this is nothing new and that we haven't changed the situation, we just kick the can down the line, are we willing to do that now for the next generation, for our employees' children? So that's why I think a lot of companies, corporate and private partners, are working very closely to make sure that is fully aligned, because it's one comprehensive community. And if you take one part of the equation out of the discussion, then later on you're going to find out you miscalculated, and your profit might be good for 2 years or 3 years, but eventually, again, you're going to have to pay for it down the line.
Yeah, no, I think that's brilliant. And LA, what are we, the fifth largest economy in the world?
California is the fifth largest economy in the world. LA County, with over $1 trillion in our GDP last year, would be probably about the 19th largest economy in the world if we were a country, larger than that of Belgium or Saudi Arabia. So we're a mini nation in ourselves.
We are, and I actually think it's a super exciting time to be here, and a lot of super positive stuff to happen. And you're one of those leaders who care, and I say that with total confidence. And I definitely appreciate you being on this series.
Well, thank you for having me. I feel that I'm just a person who cares. I think we need a lot more people who are in the same mindset. I think more and more folks are talking about this, and I think we're going to have a lot more opportunity to really unite the region and really take our rightful place in the world to really show the world what we can do. So thanks for this opportunity to speak to you and to speak to the audience.
Is this where we say, I love LA?
Yeah, well, LA, what is there not to love about LA? There's many things to love about LA. And yeah, I love LA.
Me too, man. Thanks a lot.